Yo, what's going on, everybody? Hold on. Let me plug in this lamp because the lighting isn't too good right now. Let me plug in this lamp. If I can hold up, guys. Stay with me for a second. Stay with me for a second. Stay with me for a second. How's that? Much better. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this little live that I wanted to do. I wanted to do this live because hold on, let me do this. Yeah, that's better. Because I wanted to break down exactly where the Big Six clubs currently stand. And I'll mix in Aston Villa and Newcastle as a part of this. Newcastle, obviously, having had recent success and being a dangerous team, and even though they're down near, they're down in the table, they did have a Carabao Cup semifinal that they were playing in, and I'll include Aston Villa because they're third in the Premier League. So I was just going to do this to break this down. Let's get into it. So we're going to start with Arsenal. Obviously, the team that I cover on this channel all the time, Arsenal. We're gonna break down kind of what's been going on. So, as everybody knows, Arsenal beat Chelsea. Arsenal beat Chelsea 1-0, 4-2 on aggregate to go to the Carabao Cup final yesterday. And, I had a chance to watch the game, and it pretty much confirmed everything that I saw in the highlights. Man City very passive, or Chelsea very passive in that first half. Really, for the opening 60 minutes. For the opening 60 minutes, they were very passive. They weren't trying to break us down. They weren't trying to go forward. They were content keeping it at a 1-goal deficit and then trying to nick it at the very end. And I don't know. I don't really understand the strategy because Arsenal, Man United attacked us and they had joy. They had joy when they attacked us. They scored 3 goals. So, this Arsenal team, even though it has a really good defense, it can be got at. And Chelsea, for whatever reason, didn't force the issue. And try to get Arsenal pinned back, try to create overloads, opportunities to really punish Arsenal. And when they tried to do that, it was too late. When they tried to do that, it was too late. They couldn't create anything. And we caught him on the break with Kai Havertz. And I saw the celebration, people tapping the Arsenal badge. That was, that was, that was pretty glorious. I can't lie. That was pretty glorious. Obviously, with his history with Chelsea. But to start off with Arsenal, I mean, it's hard to analyze Arsenal's performance. It really is. Look, they did what they had to do. It wasn't pretty, but it didn't have to be pretty. The onus wasn't on us, and we still won the game at the very end. And I thought we controlled that game really well, and we got what we deserved. Honestly, I don't know if a win on the night was a fair result. I think a draw was a fair result. I think 0-0 was a fair result. Obviously, we got the goal because Chelsea committed a ton of numbers forward and we hit them on the break, and that's what happens, right? The referee could have blown his whistle before that even happened. There was a goal kick that we had, and I thought, and like, like I thought he should have blown the whistle there, but he didn't. He kept play going, and we got a goal, and it was excellent. But this puts Arsenal, and I talked about it yesterday, so I won't spend a lot of time on this issue or on this topic, but that puts Arsenal into a Carabao Cup final. We know we're playing Manchester City, and that should be a good game. But I expect us to win. I really do expect us to win, and but it will be a challenge. It will be a challenge. It will be a toss-up. We don't know what's going to happen in that game, so I think Arsenal's in a good position. I really do think Arsenal's in a good position. We need to find a way to break teams down a little bit better. Our attack has not been good this season. Every one of them in attack hasn't been good this season. Output, I think overall play, there's only been a couple that have been all right, like Madueke, Saka has been good in overall play, but when it comes time to break a defense down, we're just not breaking down defenses. That's kind of our issue. But I'm not going to spend too much time on Arsenal. 6 points clear, Carabao Cup final, top of the Champions League group. The league phase really, and we move on to Sunderland on Saturday. We drew with Sunderland 2-2. It'll be a tough game. We're at home. I expect us to win that game, and we'll move on swiftly to Manchester City. Manchester City. Listen, they beat Newcastle. They beat Newcastle in the Carabao Cup semifinal. I think it was 3-1 on the night, 5-1 on aggregate. Pretty comprehensive, very comprehensive for Man City. Newcastle had to come out and attack them with a 2-goal deficit, and they just couldn't. They just couldn't break them down. And they left themselves exposed for a counterattack from Man City, and they scored plenty of goals. They had plenty of chances. I mean, they could have been worse. So Man City move on to the Carabao Cup final. However, the last result in the Premier League was against Tottenham, away from home, 2-2 draw. I watched that game. I watched that Man City Tottenham game, and if you'd have told me after halftime that Tottenham would come back and equalize and make it 2-2 and get a point for Manchester City, I'd be shocked. I'd be like, how in the world has that happened? Because in the first half, Manchester City were dominating Tottenham. Cherki was doing a madness. Honestly, that might be his best performance this season. That might be his best 45 minutes this season. He got injured in the first half, played on, but got subbed in the second half. I can't remember if it was at halftime or if it was a few minutes into the second half, but he got subbed off. But Cherki was balling. He was balling. That first goal was a great finish on his right foot, weaker foot, from the edge of the box. Really hits it into the bottom left corner. Great finish from Cherki. 1-0 Man City, and then Tottenham trying to play out from the back. Horribly executed from Dragusin. Lumps it up the pitch. One back in midfield. A couple passes. Semenyo's in. Easy goal. Easy goal. Tap in. Basically a tap in. Easy from Semenyo. And so Man City went 2-0 up, and I'm there and I'm sat there thinking to myself, I'm like, man, like, what's the point in watching this? Why am I going to watch the rest of this game when it's clear to see that Man City are dominating and Spurs have no avenues into this game? They really have no avenues into this game. But what Spurs did in the second half, they really came out and were a whole different team. Thomas Frank made a tactical tweak where he put an extra man in midfield, and that really helped out Man City that really helped out Tottenham because Man City in the first half were exposing that midfield. Spurs came with a back five, and Man City were out there just exposing that midfield, having so much space and time on the ball. Thomas Frank made a tactical tweak. Put in Sarr, took off Romero. I think Romero was ill, so he took Romero off. Maybe he was forced into that change. Maybe that wasn't a change that he wanted to do, but he was forced into it, and it really helped out Tottenham. It really did help out Tottenham. They had an extra man in midfield. They were starting to control the game better. Solanke, brilliant play for the 2 goals. The first goal, picks the ball up, holds off Kusanov. Kusanov is a physical center back. He's a physical center back, and he just held him off beautifully well. What was that a foul on Marc Guéhi? It could have been a foul on Guéhi. We kind of kicked him in the Achilles area, and the ball wound up in the back of the net. I don't know if it went down as an own goal or a Solanke goal. I couldn't see if Solanke got a touch, but he kind of kicked Guéhi's leg and it went in the back of the net. If he kicked Guéhi's leg and Guéhi kicked it in the back of the net, to me, that's a foul. To me, it's a foul. And listen, I don't like Tottenham, but I wanted them to take points off Man City. So there's no bias over here. I wanted Man City to drop points in that game, and they did. But, if that happened against an Arsenal player, I'd be really upset. I'd be really, really, really upset if that happened against my team. So I totally understand why Man City fans are complaining, thinking, is this a foul? Thinking that it was a foul. I totally get it. But Solanke's ability to hold off Kusanov was excellent. His touch was excellent. And within 10 minutes of the second half starting, Spurs are back in the game. So we go into, we go into the latter stages of the game. I forgot who whipped in the cross, but the cross comes in for Solanke, and he scorpion kicks that shit. And my God, that was a great finish from Solanke. Brilliant finish from Dominic Solanke. I was gassed. I'm not gonna lie. I was happy. People are like, Arsenal fans twerking for Man City to drop. Yes. I am twerking for Man City to drop points. I am twerking for Aston Villa to drop points. Okay, I want to win this league. And Spurs are 14th. So I don't really give a shit if Spurs win the game. Like, that has no effect on how I feel. What it does have an effect on is what does make me happy is seeing Man City drop points. And that's what Man City did. And I thought Spurs in the second half outplayed Man City. I think Man City bullied Tottenham in the first half, and it could have been more than 2-0. I think 2-0 was a good reflection of how the game was going, but Haaland missed a chance. Cherki had a shot that was saved from Vicario. It was an excellent save. They didn't call it a corner. They gave it a goal kick, but they showed the replay, and it was saved from Vicario, or else that was going in from Cherki. So Man City could have been 3 or 4-0 up at halftime. They really could have been. And I think Spurs played a lot better than Man City in the second half. I don't think they bullied them in the same way that Man City bullied Tottenham in the first half, but Tottenham outplayed them, and they deserved their point. They really, really did deserve their point. So Man City, we've seen them drop a lot of points. They drop points at Sunderland. They drop points at home to Brighton. They drop points at home to Chelsea. They just dropped points to Tottenham away. Man City are not this team that, in my opinion, is going to go on a 10 to 15 game winning streak in the Premier League the same way they did in 23-24, 22-23, 21-22, and 18-19. You know, those Man City teams, those teams that were in tight title races would just run off a winning streak of insane proportions, and they would win Man City the league. I don't see this team doing that, which gives me confidence in Arsenal to really win this league. It gives me confidence in Arsenal. So Man City dropping points, but they beat Newcastle to go to the Carabao Cup final, which was expected. They kind of did their job at St. James's, but they came back home and they outplayed Newcastle again. So, well-deserved win for Man City. And they move on. So now we go to Aston Villa. They lost 1-0 to Brentford at home last weekend. And to be honest, I thought Villa, I didn't watch the game, but that's a game that Villa should be winning, And this is why, to me, they're not in a title race. I think there's multiple reasons why Villa aren't in a title race. I think, look, I like Unai Emery. I think he's a good man. He was awful at Arsenal. And let's get something straight. There was a lot of revisionism by fans of all clubs on Unai Emery's time at Arsenal. Okay? It was good for 7 months, his time at Arsenal. It was good for 7 months. We were third in the Premier League. We were in a top 4 battle that year, and we had spent £70 million. And, to be in the top 4 would have been a great season for Unai Emery, considering the tools that he had to work with. It would have been great. But then our next 18 points, we pick up 4. We finish 5th. We get smoked in the Europa League final by Chelsea. And the next season, he gets sacked when we're sitting 10th or 11th, and we're in December. So his time at Arsenal, there's a lot of revisionism about Unai Emery's time at Arsenal. But his time at Aston Villa, I thought the same thing would happen, where he would go in, have immediate impact, and then it would collapse. But that's not what happened, and I have to hold my hands up. I got that wrong. Unai Emery has been Aston Villa's manager for, I think this is his 3rd full season. I think this is his 3rd full season as Aston Villa manager, and Aston Villa has been overperforming what you'd expect them to do. They have quality players on their side, but I don't think Unai Emery, the same way I felt about Mikel Arteta, can win the Premier League as a manager. So that's number 1. Number 2, his squad isn't good enough, guys. His squad isn't good enough. He's playing Victor Lindelof. Okay, he got released by Man United, who finished 15th last season. He's now at Aston Villa. He's playing Victor Lindelof back there. Okay? Ollie Watkins has not had a good season. He's playing guys like Buendia, who, for the most part, have flopped at Aston Villa. They sold Duran last season. Their midfield isn't a title-winning midfield. Their defense is nowhere near a title-winning defense. Morgan Rogers is one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. He really, really is. But John McGinn, He's a good player. I mean, I'm not hating on John McGinn, but can you win a league with John McGinn in your midfield? And listen, anything is possible because Leicester proved it. Leicester proved that anything is possible. But John McGinn, for me, isn't going to be able to be in the midfield, lead a team to a Premier League title. So they lost to Brentford. That was surprising. I can't lie, that was surprising. But I think Aston Villa, I think if they finish in the Champions League spots, they've had a great season. They've had a great season. And they go back in the Champions League. You know, they played PSG really well last season in the Champions League. Almost created an improbable comeback, which would have been sensational if they would have been able to pull that off. But they weren't able to do it. I just think, you know, Aston Villa don't have what it takes to win the league. Let's go to Man United. Man United, listen, they've won 3 games in a row. Michael Carrick has really done a good job at Manchester United. He beat Man City 2-0 comprehensively, dominated Manchester City, beat Arsenal away from home 3-2. The top 2 teams in the Premier League, Michael Carrick beat. And then he beat Fulham with a Sesko winner in the 94th minute, 3-2. I think Man United, I mean, I saw some writers on ESPN saying that they're in the title race. And although the reasoning made sense, they forgot about the team that they're talking about. You know, they're 12 points behind, and a 12-point lead in this season where teams are dropping points left and right. Yeah, a team might be able to overcome that, but they're going to have to go on a crazy run to do so. And this Man United team is not built for that. You know, we've seen Man City and Liverpool do that, but we've not seen a Man United team do that with this level of quality. Now, they have some good players. I think Sesko's a good player. Cunha, Mbeumo, you know, Kobe Mainu, Bruno Fernandes, Ugarte. Oh, no. Not Ugarte. Ugarte's awful. But Casemiro's had a good season. But I don't think don't think they're at the point yet where they can challenge for a title. Again, they're in that situation where if they finish top 4, they've had an excellent season. Excellent season. Because the expectation was, I mean, I had them finishing 8th this season. I had Man United finishing 8th. Because I looked at their manager, Ruben Amorim. I looked at their squad. I looked at their tactics, and I thought, I don't see how they break into the top 6. But they're sitting 4th right now. So if they can finish the season strong, finish top 4, that's a great season for them. They play Tottenham next. You know, they play Tottenham at home next. They have to win that game. Tottenham are awful. And, you know, we'll get into Tottenham. But Tottenham are awful. They should be winning that game. But you just never know with Man United. You just never know. So we'll see what happens. Chelsea. Rosignol came in, and I think before the Arsenal game, they won 6 out of their last 7. That loss came against Arsenal at home. But they have issues. You know, they've spent a ton of money, so much money, and their attack. I mean, Estevao is 18 years old. He's their best attacker. You know, João Pedro's solid. You know, he's solid. But that left wing, oh my God, that left wing is awful. Garnacho, Gittins. Sometimes they play Pedro Neto out there. Sometimes he plays on the right. He stinks too. So they have three they have three wingers that are awful. And their midfield, I think Enzo, I don't think he's worth what they paid for him. I think he can be okay, but I think you're going to need to upgrade on Enzo Fernandez. Cole Palmer's had his injury issues. Caicedo's been the only one that's been really performing at a high level this season. Lavia's been injured, or Lavia, should I say? Andre Santos hasn't really played much, and that defense. I mean, they're starting Tossin at some points this season. He is not Chelsea standard. He's not. Colwell tore his ACL. He's been out. That's been a big miss for them. Their goalkeeper, Sanchez, again, you need a better goalkeeper to compete. You really need a better goalkeeper to compete. And they have a few good quality players in their team. Caicedo, Palmer, Esteval. I'm trying to think who, Colwell. I think Cucurella is pretty good. Reece James, obviously. I can't forget about Reece James. They have good players. But unfortunately for them, they have a lot of players who stink. They have a lot of players who stink. And they spent a lot of money on these players. And, they just terminated Raheem Sterling's contract. You guys know how I feel about Raheem Sterling. He came to Arsenal last season and was awful. He was so bad the whole season. I don't even know if he scored a goal for us. I literally don't know if he scored a goal for us. He's finished. Okay, he's finished. He had a great career. He is a great Premier League left winger in terms of all time. But now he's finished. And I don't know where he's going to go next. I don't know who he's going to play for next. But it's so bad with Raheem Sterling. I'm honestly thinking about the championship for him. I'm being so serious. Maybe a lower level Premier League team could use him, but I'm genuinely thinking about the championship because I think his level has gone down so much, so fast that it's only going to keep getting worse. And if it and the level that he's at now is 14th, 15th in the Premier League level of player. That's his level now. So what's going to be a year from now? It's going to be worse. So, I mean, listen, they paid a lot of money for Sterling. They released him. But Chelsea, they have issues. They just went out of the Carabao Cup to us. And they're in the Champions League, they're in the FA Cup, but I think the best they can hope for, maybe that FA Cup. Okay. But Champions League, forget about it. Premier League, forget about it. They're just going to have to hopefully finish in the top 4, top 5 and see what happens. Liverpool beat Newcastle 4-1. I thought that was a great result for Liverpool. They've had a horrible season based on expectations. Their expectation was to win the league. They spent a ton of money. They spent over £400 million on Wirtz, Frimpong, Kirkez, Isak, Ekitike. They were about to sign Mark Gahey. They spent so much money. And at one point, they were sitting 11th, 12th, right? They were awful. And recently they've picked up results. Look, they've been drawing a lot of games. I mean, they drew to us. They drew to Burnley at home. I think they drew to Sunderland at home, but I think that was a few weeks ago. But they're slowly starting to pick up form again, but it's not good enough, and they need to finish in the Champions League because I don't know what FFP is going to look like if you spend all that money, finish outside the Champions League, and get Europa League money or Conference League money, even worse. So they need to finish in the Champions League places. And we know Newcastle haven't been that good this season. So, like beating Newcastle at home, you would expect that. You would expect that. I thought that game would be a draw, and the reason why isn't because of Newcastle, it's because of Liverpool and how poorly they've been this season. So Liverpool, they're in a top 4 battle. I think they finished in the top 8 of the Champions League. Let me just double check. Let me just double check standings. Yeah, okay, they finished third. So, I mean, listen, that's solid. Their Champions League form has been good. They obviously lost to PSV 4-1 at home. That was a crazy result. But, they picked up 18 points. They finished third behind Bayern and Arsenal. So good, good stuff from them in the Champions League. With their quality, they could win the Champions League, but I think it's a pipe dream. I really think it's a long shot for Liverpool to win the Champions League. Moving on to Newcastle. They've been poor this season. They have been poor this season. And they signed Voltermada, or they signed Voltermade. I don't know how you say his name. Voltermade. Let me know in the comments. But they signed him. They signed Alenga, who's been awful. Alenga has been terrible for them. They had FFP PSR restrictions, so they couldn't really sign many other players. Obviously, a couple years ago, they sold Elliot Anderson, who's been fantastic for Nottingham Forest. So in this season, they've not been good. Eddie Howe, I don't know. His time may be up. You're going to have to ask Newcastle fans. I'm not sure. He's done a fantastic job at Newcastle. He's really, really, really done a good job. He won them a trophy, their first trophy in 50-plus years. That's awesome for Newcastle. Newcastle's a big club. Newcastle is a club with a lot of history. And I was happy to see them back in the Champions League. Obviously this season, but a couple seasons ago, their first time in the Champions League in like 20 years. That's fantastic. I like Newcastle as a club, but they're going to have to change something up. Newcastle's going to have to change something up. I don't know if it's the manager. I don't know if they need to get their PSR, FFP stuff figured out, but they're not having a good season. They finished 12th in the Champions League group stage. I'm going to check the Premier League standings because I don't know exactly where they are right now. Let me look. They are 11th. Yeah, that's not good enough. I mean, Everton's above them. Fulham's above them. Sunderland, who just got promoted, is above them. Brentford's in 7th. So they should at the very least be top 8, top 7. And I mean, they're 6 points off Liverpool in 6th. But, they're looking to qualify for the Champions League, So I think Newcastle, 9 wins, 6 draws, 9 losses. That's not good. That's not good. So Newcastle, and they put in an awful performance in the Carabao Cup over both legs, against Man City. So they got some stuff to figure out. Final team we're going to touch on before I end this stream, Tottenham. Big up Tottenham for taking points off Man City. Okay? They played really well in that second half. But that's where the credit stops, because Tottenham have been a horror show this season. They have been awful. Chelsea perform. I think out of every other club in the Premier League, besides Arsenal, I've watched Tottenham the most this season. I watched them play Chelsea. I watched them play Man United. I watched them play us. I watched them play Man City home and away. I watched them play Fulham at home when they lost 2-1. Okay? They drew against Man United. They beat Man City, drew against Man City. But besides that, it's been loss after loss after loss after loss. Their XG has been so bad. It was 0.07 against Arsenal. 0.07. It was, what was our XG against Chelsea? What was our XG against Chelsea? Their XG against 0.05. Their XG against Chelsea was 0.05. 0.05 against Chelsea, 0.07 against Arsenal. Okay? XG has its flaws, right? Because you can have 2 chances in a whole game and have an XG over 1, right? Like, that can happen if you create high XG chances, and it can be misleading. Oh, they created a 1.34, 1.3, 1.4 XG. How'd they not score? Well, they had 2 chances the whole game, and they missed both of them. So XG can be misleading. But in the case of Tottenham, it's not misleading. It is not a misleading stat. Their ability to string passes together, to string 5, 6, 7, 8 passes together, is almost non-existent. It's almost non-existent. It's that bad. It's that bad. I'm gonna put my hood up. My head is cold. It's that bad. Okay, their ability to string passes to string passes together is poor. They don't have any. Look, Xavi Simons is their only creative midfielder. They just signed Conor Gallagher. I don't know why. He's more of the same old for Tottenham. He doesn't progress the ball. Tottenham needs somebody who can play between the lines, who can pick the ball up, turn, play the ball forward. Against Man City, do you know how many times I saw Bissouma pick up the ball, have the option to turn and play a pass forward, and just play it right back to the center back? That's not going to get you anywhere. You need to play through the midfield. And Spurs don't have that. Xavi Simons this season has been poor. Last couple of games, he's been better. But obviously Solanke was out until recently. Richarlison is now out. Kulusevski is out. Madison is out. They have a lot of players injured, and they signed Conor Gallagher and 2 kids in the January transfer window. That's not going to get it done. So Spurs play Man United. I think the best they can hope for is a draw. I really do, because Man United have been in form, and Spurs are not a good footballing side. They're not. So anyway, but that wraps up this video. Thank you for the people who tuned in. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree with anything that I've said in this video. Let me know if you want me to do more videos like these. I might do them anyway. My mom, I live at home right now, and my mom is my mom is out of the country for a month. So I might be doing a lot more videos. I might be doing a lot more watch alongs. I think Saturday I'm going to do a watch along to the Sunderland game. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.